Good afternoon, patrons, and welcome to the June 2018 Patroncast. The Patroncast is back again. Hello, welcome back to the Patroncast. It's a very, very hot Patroncast. Britain at this exact moment in time is going through a bit of a heat wave at the minute, which probably if you're from somewhere that's really, really hot, you're probably thinking doesn't really feel much like a heat wave, because we're up to 30 degrees Celsius, tops. At the minute, I think it's 26 to 30, but it's still 26 at night. Still really bloody warm, and there's not enough breeze, so we can't really deal with that. And yeah, the problem is, it's not just that I'm not used to the heat, though I'm not. British people aren't really used to this heat. The problem is, basically, most of Britain's housing stock was built to try and keep the heat in, because it's cold most of the time. So, thick walls, lots of insulation. Let's keep that heat locked in under all circumstances, even if there's a heat wave going on. So I'm very hot. I've only just sat down to record this. I'm going to be recording it for some time, and I'm already uncomfortably sweaty. Got myself a nice glass of cool water here. That'll stay cool for about 10 minutes, then it will be unpleasantly tepid in room temperature, so I'm looking forward to that already. Still, welcome to the end of June, or probably the beginning of July. But June, let's talk about June. June's been so mixed. The channel on June has been great. It's actually, I don't have the full data yet, so I can't give you the full picture. In some ways, I'd like to have done this one a little bit late, but the weekends fell as they fell, so I thought, you know what, this is the time I ought to do it, so I ought to do it. I don't know exactly how full month June has gone at this point. I'm recording this on the 28th, but I've only got actual reliable, verified data up to the end of the 26th. Of June, though I can put a pretty good guess in for the 27th off some kind of unverified data I can pull out of some third-party tools. But yeah. Basically, already, June is our biggest month ever. And I say that, with several days to go left in it. That record was previously held by, actually, weirdly, by August 2017, which had no particular reason to be the previous best ever month. That was what was that, 5 million and something views. Hang on, I'm going to get the data up. Yeah, there we go. August 2017, 5.3 million views. Now, depending on which source you're referring to, April 2016 sometimes says there were more views in April 2016 and sometimes doesn't. So, you know what, let's include it anyway. The highest number I've ever seen for that, because there was some weird glitchiness back end in YouTube in April 2016, so the numbers are really unreliable. The highest number I ever saw for that was 5.9 million. 5,959,000 to be precise. Now, up to the end of the 26th, in June 2018, we're already up to 5,965,000. So, we've already broken the record, and we're definitely going to break 6 million views, which is really exciting. It's really, really cool. It's really, really cool. Now, you're probably thinking, oh, well, that's, Fallout 3 is better than you think. Huzzah, that did really, really well. It did, but then it's also kind of interesting, because, the number of views that got within June was, it's under 1 million. So we're going to hit, if we get lucky and we hit, say, 6.5, we get to hit 6.5 million, then we take that million off. That's still 5.5 million, which is still, that'll still be the second highest month, even if we kind of accept April 2016 as existing. And if we don't, then that would still be the highest month ever regardless. So it's been a really interesting rising tide lifts all boats kind of scenario, because the thing is, it's not just got a load of views because it's been shared. Actually, if you search for Fallout 3 in YouTube right now, and you kind of open up an incognito tab to make sure you're seeing proper, real, genuine results, you're not being biased by your previous searching behaviour, we're actually, we've been the #1 result on Fallout 3 for, pretty much the entirety of the month, and that's worth not a lot of views, but a lot of new subs. We've had, 15,000 odd new subs in, which is way higher than usual during this month, which is really, really cool indeed. So I assume those guys have gone on to watch other videos, so there's just been a lot more views floating around in general, which is really, really cool. So it's been fantastic. And I think we've had a really good month. I'm really proud of the stuff I've been putting out this month. I think we've had some great stuff, loads of little indie games that people wouldn't have heard of. I think we made great videos. Tell Me Everything and Budget Cuts on the VR, I thought were great. I thought it was really cool. We got to show off Phantom Doctrine so early. Overland, what a find. Overland was flipping marvellous, absolutely marvellous. We got on Hitman 2 Sniper Challenge really quickly. I flipping loved Wreckfest. There's been some really, really good one-offs, and this month I've been trying to focus on doing a few more one-offs and slightly less on the series front. I think it's worked so nicely Like, if I look at all the stuff we've done, the Crisis video, I love the Crisis video. Train Station Simulator went really well. Everjane was really, really cool indeed. The one that surprised me, actually, was Inside. I thought, like, people would be really interested in seeing Inside. I thought it was a really good video, but Inside got really few views. But then, you know, Human Resource Machine was actually thrown together pretty quickly. That was actually thrown together the same day. I made Human Resources on Wednesday morning, and it went out on Wednesday evening. And that was because I changed everything round a bit because, okay, there's something I can't tell you exists, sorry. I know I like saying things on this, but, like, I can't break NDA. That's non-disclosure agreements. Not even here. So I'm sorry about that. I have got access to a... Wait, hang on. No, by the time you hear this, it'll be fine. Yeah, I got Red Faction Guerrilla, the remastered edition, already. By the time you hear this, we'll be past the embargo and the video will be out, so it'll be fine. So I got that. So there was originally going to be a different set of videos running from Wednesday, a little mini-series I'm going to start next week instead. So then, like, I thought, okay, the earliest I'm allowed to put out a Red Faction Guerrilla video is Friday, so that needs to go there, but that means now there's an empty slot on Wednesday, so I thought, okay, I need to find something. So I actually went to the Reddit suggestion thread. I just kind of scrolled through it, so I found something that I like the look of. So, oh, Human Resource Machine, I've heard of that, that's supposed to be good. And I wasn't even 100% sure quite what it was. I found it, so, oh, programming, that sounds fun. Loads of people love that. Loads of people love that. At the time of recording this, I don't know what the stream this weekend's going to be. Like, I was originally thinking, oh, I could do a Red Faction Guerrilla stream or something. But now I'm half thinking, hey, I could actually just do more Human Resource Machine. So I might have made that decision by now. In fact, yeah, by the time you see this, I must have done, because the live stream will have already happened. But this is a view into the past when I didn't know. Ooh, you magnificent future people who know the terrible secrets even I do not know at this point. So yes, the channel has been doing great in June. Unfortunately, yeah, we've got this heat wave, which makes recording really uncomfortable. Because to record, obviously, like, I need a nice, quiet environment. So I need to close all the doors, so I can't really have, like, any windows open or anything as well. So I can't have, like, a draft coming for anything. I can't have fans on because they make noise. And the problem with my really nice, fancy computer is it's got really good cooling systems inside, because I can't have the fans going up to 10 bajillion because they'll just start whirring and it'll pick up the noise. So I've got some really good cooling systems in my computer, but all that really means is they're very, very good at efficiently and quietly pumping heat out of my computer. So basically it just means the computer's even more of a radiator. Every time I've upgraded my computer, I've just made it hotter. Or at least rather, I've made it cooler, but the room around it hotter. So that's good. That's good. So it's baking in this closed room. I'm recording this and I'm recording everything in at the moment. I've been told by the weekend this heatwave will be over. That'll be great. Other fun thing this month. Remember a couple of months ago when I mentioned we were having some trouble with, like, our bathroom, where we were, like, having workers in because they needed to tear off some tiles and then put some new tiles on and all the rest of it. That's still happening. That's still happening. We need to have more people in to tear off more tiles and just tear up our bathroom even more, to get to a pipe, to fix a leaking pipe that's incredibly hard to get to, because whoever actually originally built this place did an appalling job laying out the pipe sensibly. So that's fun. So we're going to have more people. That's going to be like another 2 days I probably can't work, so there's going to be hammering and work just going on, so that's going to be hilarious. And this is the best one. This is the best one of all. I managed to yawn about, I think this was about a week and a half ago. I yawned slightly wrong and I managed to sprain my own jaw, which sounds like a thing humans can't do, but then I tweeted about it and like 10 different people said, oh yeah, that's happened to me. This is apparently some great terrible curse that afflicts humanity that we're all just basically embarrassed to admit happened for the most part, because it just sounds like the stupidest thing in the world to do, that you didn't yawn right and you put your own jaw out. So that's been uncomfortable for about a week. It hasn't been able to actually stop me recording because it's been fine, but it has made chewing difficult. It has made chewing difficult. So I've been sticking to nice, soft pastas and stuff, letting my cereal soak in the milk a minute longer than usual so it's nice and soft. I think we're back to normal now. I can actually chew, it's great. But for an entire week, it just kind of felt like my jaw wasn't quite in the right spots. So that was hilarious. So June has been a personally challenging month, but for the channel, it's been flipping great. It's been a really, really great month. We've got loads of new people showing up. In fact, I saw a whole bunch of people showing up with the Patreon answers. So there's loads of new people for whom this is like your first Patroncast. Hello, you guys. So yes, let's move on to the questions, shall we? Because that's where I am personally. Where I am personally is extremely hot and sweating right now. I know you've been asked about D&D quite a few times. I would like to ask, if you were to try playing D&D, do you think it would be a video or rather something private? I would do a video of it. I would do a video. Like, this has been something I've been thinking about for a long time, which is I would like to actually make a video which is like my first ever Dungeons & Dragons game. And I'd probably do it by doing it over Tabletop Simulator online. I need to find the right people to do it with. Because I need to find people who I've actually got a personal relationship with in some capacity. Because, like, you know, you're going to do your best work when two people know each other, so you can bounce off each other effectively. If you're still, like, you know, learning each other and stuff about it and you don't know much about each other, it's hard to bounce off each other. Which is why I tend to like, you know, doing collabs with the same relatively small circle of people, which I should look to expand. I genuinely should. And I've been meaning to look at doing, like, something with, like, you know, a grand strategy game or just a strategy game of some description, whether that be, like, you know, Civ 6 or Stellaris or something, and trying to slightly widen the circle and doing some work with some of those guys. Because, you know, there's some good, well-regarded content creators of a similar number of subs as we have who play those sorts of games. So that could be a really positive thing for us. So I kind of need to look into that at some point. But I would probably do a tabletop simulator thing at some point. So I just kind of need to figure out who the right people are. I kind of wouldn't want my first game to be with people I didn't know, because I'd want to be comfortable while I was learning it, because it's a completely new thing for me. But, like, if it went well, absolutely there would be the potential to kind of roll it out to a bigger thing in future. So we'll see. We'll see about that. And also the kind of follow-up question was, I hope Tabby gets all the love she needs. I'd love to see more pictures of her. Claire, roll the Tabby pictures! While we're on the Tabby pictures, Tabby's a little bit sour at us right now. Tabby had to go to the vet, just for her, you know, her checkup for, you know, topping up her vaccinations and all of that. The vet said she'd lost a bit of weight. And we kind of had a theory that the reason she might have lost a bit of weight is because she gets meat in the evening and biscuits in the morning and in the evening. So sometimes she kind of just ignores her biscuits because she knows meat is coming, so she leaves a lot of food. So we thought, okay, the vet kind of recommended that we kind of, you know, do a period of however long where we feed her nothing but biscuits in the morning and the evening, and then a period where she gets, like, nothing but meat. We also put a few biscuits, so she's got something to graze on as well. And there's been mixed reactions. Like, you know, the first bit with all biscuits she's not keen on. The bit with all meat she started off super keen on. Then she seemed to go off it a bit, but we're not sure whether that was just a heat wave. So she's a bit hot because she's quite fluffy. So we weren't quite sure how that's going. But we think she might be a little bit sour at us right now on account of that. So Claire and I will go on to monitor that as time goes by and try and figure out the best way to deal with that. Any plans for You Only Live Once of Fallout 76? Well, it's better than the usual question of when's Fallout 4 You Only Live Once. I don't know. I don't know what we're going to do there. Like, the thing is, sometimes I can't figure out what the best, like, run for a game is until I've played it. Like, to be really enigmatic right now, because I want to keep this one a secret, I am currently planning a really big collab video with several different people. And, like, when I was originally planning it, like, I had no idea in mind. I've just taken receipt of, like, all of the game codes for it, and I played it for a few minutes, and immediately, like, the way that video ought to go and the way we'll structure it and, like, the sort of vague, challenging rules we'll impose on ourselves to give it structure, they just occurred to me, like, straight away. So until we know more about Fallout 76, I can't really comment, to be honest. One thing that has been mentioned a few times was a community John hunt, which I absolutely love the idea of, by the way. Absolutely adore that idea, because we know that, like, everyone's going to be marked on the map. So, like, if we could find a way of setting up a private server, which hopefully will come, we don't know exactly when. Like, right now, all you can do is have, I think it's a team to a max of, like, 4. I know we've seen only 4. I can't remember if that's been, like, my brain's telling me that has been confirmed, that right now it's going to be teams of 4 at the max. But eventually, we know we're going to get private servers. So once we get private servers, we could set up a server which has got me and a whole bunch of other people, and it's just going to be a John hunt, and it could be a community event. Like, the moment we can set that up, I'm doing that, and you'll always know where I am, and you can just be always running towards me. And it's going to be great fun. And we can like have, prizes of some description for whoever actually kills me. So that will be great. I'm really looking forward to that. That's one thing I definitely want to do, but as I say, I don't know how long it's going to be until the server situation will allow us to do precisely that. But that will absolutely flipping happen. If there was a website where you could buy raw spreadsheet data, sales, number of customers, revenue, expense, etc. from different companies around the world for the purpose of modeling in Excel, which company's data would you be most interested in seeing? Now, my answer is probably going to be a bit unusual, because I'm going to say YouTube. You're probably thinking, John, you already have access to loads of YouTube data. I don't, actually. What I have access to is a modified version of data that YouTube lets me see. YouTube protects your privacy by anonymizing and wrapping all up together and collating all of the data that pertains to everyone that watches my channel. So, for example, I know what number of people watched a particular video, and I know, say, if there was a day where only like one subscriber showed up, I wouldn't know who that one subscriber was, and I couldn't follow their journey. I can't say, okay, the subscribers that came in this month only, like, what did they go on to watch? People who subscribed after their first video that they watched while they were non-subscribers was Fallout 3 is better than you think. What do they watch? Do they watch, like, only Fallout stuff, or are they interested in other stuff? Like, people who are watching particular one-offs, what else they watch? I can't wrap people together like that and actually, we call it cohorting, which basically says you take a group of people and you follow them over time to see what they do. And I can't see that information from YouTube. I just get the big picture of, like, the overall numbers. But I have very few ways of drilling down in those numbers. Like, I can see, say, for those numbers, like, what proportion of them come from each country. But I have no way of taking them forward. Every bit of data I have from YouTube is a bit of data as a snapshot. But I can never tie it together. That's really frustrating. Because back in my marketing days, like, the most powerful thing you can do for any individual person is put some form of, like, unique ID on their account or whatever, and then follow them on their journey so you can actually see what they do going forward. This is kind of the process I went through when I made the Excel video, where you actually create, like, cohort stacked area graphs so you can actually keep an eye on cohort drop-off and overall business drop-off over time. That's really, really powerful because it gives you such valuable insights into a given group of people, what they do and what they like and stuff like that. So, for example, if I could, like, isolate the groups of people who tend to donate super chat during the live streams and figure out, okay, who are these people? What can I tell about them? Is there anything useful in terms of information I can get about that? That would be so cool to know. It'd be so cool to know. Patreon gives me a little bit more information, but even then, not much. Not much, to be honest. But, like, I understand why these companies obviously don't let me have that information, because it would probably be, it would be an illegal breach of privacy. For the bare minimum, it's good that companies do respect privacy. Google is actually really good at that. They're very you-friendly as opposed to me-friendly. Because me, I would just love to take all of the data pertaining to everyone on the channel and, like, create a big spreadsheet about you all. But YouTube is like, no, you may not do that. I'm not going to tell you who any of these people are or let you kind of track any of their journeys around YouTube, which is very sad, but I suppose I also do grudgingly admire and respect the fact that Google has actually taken a really pro-consumer and pro-privacy approach when it comes to the data that YouTubers are allowed to see about you guys. Hey John, I may be going to university soon depending on my results. I've already failed once and I have a feeling I have again. Just wondering if you have any ways to cope with failure. I'm actually really bad at that. I shouldn't be the one to give you advice. I have a very unhealthy relationship with failure, which is, as a general rule, when, like, things I'm doing don't work out, like, my immediate response is basically, in some form or other, to yell, well, I'll show them! And basically, my entire focus, therefore, is to either do something, like, better or succeed at the same thing, but, like, spectacularly the following year or something. And basically, it's pretty much just extremely low-level petty revenge. So, when things don't go my way, I'm determined to make them go my way, whether that's in the form of, doing it anyway later, or just finding something better to do, and then feeling like, all those people who succeeded in the thing I originally wanted to succeed, and I'll show them, I'll do something even better. Oh, I'm not allowed to be in NASA's new Go to the Moon program. Well, I'll show them. I'll invent my own Mars colony and go there. Ha! That'll teach everybody. So that's my relationship to failure. That, and when I was young, I hugged my dog. I had a dog when I was growing up. He was very huggable. So when things went wrong, I would enjoy hugging him. So hug dogs. Like, I'm going to say of those two things, swearing petty revenge or hugging a dog, I'm going to go for option B, hug the dog. Hug a dog. How was Canada Day? It's Canada Day. Canada Day's on Sunday, isn't it? So at the time of recording, Canada Day hasn't happened yet. At the time of hearing this, it will be Canada Day. So happy Canada Day, everybody! So yes, I'm not sure I'm actually planning to do anything for Canada Day. I suppose I could try and find a vaguely Canadian game for Canada Day. Oh, I don't know. I'll have a think about that. Any chance of you playing Fallout Shelter? Never say never. Honestly, I don't have a plan to do it because even though it's got Fallout on the box, it's, you know, it's the most different Fallout game. Well, possibly like tied with Brotherhood of Steel. It's a very different thing. Like, in many ways, it's not really a Fallout game, is it? It's a totally unrelated game that just happens to have Fallout on the box. So I would absolutely not bet against it. You know, one day I will actually get around to it. I doubt it will be a series, to be honest. That sort of thing isn't really my thing. But regardless, it will definitely happen at some point or another. Also, what's your plan for the Frost slot, as the mod you're playing will end at some point? It will actually end very, very soon indeed. Autumn Leaves is not long. Like, they estimate like 7 to 10 hours of gameplay in that. So that will be like, I don't know, that might end in part 4. So that will leave like a matter of, what's that? That will be early July. And we're going to have Fallout 76 in November and a couple of test periods. Well, hopefully a couple. I think the implication was there was going to be like more than one. Couple of test periods like in the meantime as well. So that gives us, 5-ish months, maybe with some interruptions. That's kind of an odd length of time because it's not really enough time to do like a massive, huge challenge run. Like, Fallout 4 You Only Live Once needs a bit more free space than that. Like, I was originally planning to look at that before they announced 76. Like, I was thinking they were going to announce at E3 or the period just before that. It was going to be Fallout 3 Remastered. That was going to come out imminently. So that was going to be the new series that we were starting, like, nowish. So, we were going to get on that as soon as that came out. Do that. That wouldn't be that long, to be honest. It would kind of be more of a, hey, here's all the cool stuff. In Fallout 3, it would be very much like Fallout New Vegas Survival, just in Fallout 3. And then we do Fallout 4 You Only Live Once towards the end of the year when that began. Fallout 76 has kind of thrown that off, because I honestly don't even know how long like a Fallout 76 series is going to be. It's going to be a nightmare to arrange, because obviously you don't want to solo it for the most part. You want other people involved. So I'm kind of, chatting to some of the familiar people I've worked with before who fortunately do like Fallout and are up for this sort of thing to try and figure out what we do, like whether we do a shared series that alternates between different channels or something like that, or we do different POVs of the same stuff, or I'm not sure. I'm not quite sure how it's all gonna quite fit together at this point. So that kind of leaves us with, kind of a 5-month window. I don't even just want to do mods like that whole time. I'd like to do something a bit more substantial in that period. Two things I've got in mind, this is far from decided, are Fallout 2, which is questionable, because Fallout 2 is, as I understand it, quite a bit longer the original Fallout. So even though the original Fallout was, 20 parts over 20 weeks, which would have fit perfectly, Fallout 2, as I understand it, is quite a bit longer. So that might kind of overrun a bit. Plus, Fallout, the original series, though it was really cool, didn't really get much in the way of views. I mean, it did better than your average video, but next to any other Fallout thing I could do, it didn't do that well. So I'm kind of not sure what I want to do about that, because I have to get round to it sooner or later. But I'm just not sure whether people are desperately keen on seeing it. I think there's a lot of people that are only really interested in the more recent generations of 3D Fallout and not so interested in the 2D stuff. The other alternative is to go to Fallout New Vegas Dust, which is kind of like the sibling of Fallout 4 Frost. They're made, I think, by the same guy. Dust came first and is further along. It's a bit of a contentious one. Some people say Dust is a lot better. Some people say Dust is a lot worse. I mean, it's certainly true that New Vegas's map is a lot smaller than Fallout 4's, so that's kind of interest. that, it presumably must be a bit of a smaller thing. Plus, there's no, disabling saving through survival mode in Fallout New Vegas Dusk, because that's just not a mechanism in Fallout New Vegas. So, as a result of that, it strikes me as it would be a shorter series. And what was Frost in the end? Frost was that 30 parts or something? So yeah, that would arguably probably fill the spot pretty nicely. It is New Vegas-y. Frost went down very well. Some people weren't 100% keen on it. I think it would be nice because we've just done a bunch of more kind of relaxing bits and pieces. We've done a little light-hearted challenge with Platinum Chip. We've done the kind of fairly chill RPG, barely any violence. In fact, no violence whatsoever so far. Autumn Leaves, so that's pretty cool as well. So it might be time to kind of, jump into something a bit more stressful before we get into something like, Fallout 76, where it's a first run through, so there won't be any specific challenge rules. It's vaguely what I'm thinking. That's vaguely what I'm thinking. And then after, we're done with 76, that'd probably be a really good time for Fallout 4 You Only Live Once. And I don't even know how long 76 would be. I don't think it's going to be a traditional Fallout series where it can go up to 50, 60 parts or whatever. But then we don't know how big 76 is going to be either. So, questions. Big questions. Don't actually know for certain. I asked my 3-year-old how to say Diplodocus, and she pronounced it as Diplodocus. Alright, that's got to be the right way then. I'm still saying Diplodocus. I'm not having any of this Diplodocus nonsense. Diplodocus is ridiculous. It's a Diplodocus. I will accept no argument on this. Have you ever watched the YouTube series Fallout Nuka Break? I watched Series 1. I think they did something else after that point, but I never actually saw it. But I definitely saw the whole of Series 1. It was nicely put together, I enjoyed it. But yeah, I'm sure they did something else since I haven't seen. So thank you for the reminder. I should actually go and check out whatever that was. Any chance of a Pokemon playthrough? As usual, yeah. Basically, if Nintendo ever stopped being dicks, and I imagine the weight of history will one day force them to do so, because they're one of only a tiny handful of publishers that still be dicks. In fact, yeah, they are pretty much right now the top of the dick pile, with their own stupid, private, proprietary Nintendo Creator Program nonsense. They can't hang on to that forever. Just look at all the big YouTubers that don't touch their stuff at all. So many big YouTubers will do everything but Nintendo. And it's just ridiculous. Sure, they've got their own dedicated Let's Players and whatever who do nothing but that, but they're just missing out on so much free marketing, basically. Sooner or later, someone is going to come along. Someone in Nintendo is going to retire or change department, and someone new's going to come in and say, this is absolutely ridiculous. I'm sorry, guys, but YouTube is an important part of the actual ecosystem in which we live. We cannot actually keep treating YouTubers like dicks and alienate large numbers of them. So sooner or later, that's going to change. And when it does, absolutely I will do Nintendo stuff. 100%. I'm just waiting for Nintendo to stop being dicks. Have you ever considered doing a live stream that's more friendly for the Australians, starting in the morning for you instead of the evening? Unfortunately, yes, this would kind of basically render a large number of Americans, Canadians, not able to view. Now, that is a problem, because Americans, in terms of the US, are a huge, by far the biggest proportion of people in the community. I'm not sure they're over half, but they're by far the biggest minority. 40% of the entire community is US. And Canada, I think, is the third or fourth biggest number of subs after UK, and kind of tying, I think, with Australia, then Germany in fifth is how it's traditionally been. I'm pretty sure that's still the case. It certainly was the last time I looked that up. So I can't really do them at a time that just doesn't work for the US and Canada. The reason I do them at the time I do is because it's the weekend, it's early afternoon for the Americans, so they can all be around, and it's early evening for Europe, for UK and Germany, and also the not insignificant communities in Sweden. Interestingly, we have quite a few Swedish subscribers. It's just so many people would not be able to attend. The Americans would be almost entirely out, aside from the really hardcore people who are willing to show up at a stupid o'clock. And I think it would also be a lot more difficult for the UK. Lots of people who potentially would be sleeping in on a weekend would therefore miss it as well. So we just lose so many people. I mean, I never say never. Never say never. Maybe on, Anzac Day or something, we could do a special. But I don't know. I don't know. It just would be very difficult for those reasons. Given the high cost of living in London and the fact that you and Claire work from home, would you ever consider moving somewhere else in the UK or in Europe where the cost of living is more reasonable? You could possibly have a garden for a dog. This is kind of a thing I think Claire and I disagree on slightly, which is I'd probably be very happy to leave London. And we've just kind of shuffled further and further north towards the outskirts as time's gone by. I'd be very happy to go somewhere else a bit more rural, so we could have a nice garden and a dog and whatever. But Claire is also very much right that not only does she really like London, having London right there, but we also have a lot of friends. We've made a lot of friends in London, and it will be very hard to kind of be too distant from them in such a way as we couldn't easily go and visit them as well. So it is difficult. It is difficult, and it's something we'll likely do at some point or other. But for the time being, even though we're quite away from the centre of London right now, we've shuffled further and further up away from there. But I imagine it will be something that we absolutely do look at some point. Last month I asked you if you'd like a Fallout-style XCOM game. You suggested Wasteland as an example of it. However, I meant more base building and missions rather than open world. So you'd have a Brother of Steel bunker and run missions from there and build it, or an NCR base, Legion Camp, Enclave, oil rig, or bunker, or base. Would that interest you? Interesting. I think a lot of people wouldn't really define that as Fallout-y, because stuff about base building and very specifically a faction system, rather than it being a faction system where you're an open world and there's lots of factions you choose to side with to varying degrees or not. Instead, there's one faction where you are starting off as a member of it and simply running missions for them. I think a lot of people would say that wasn't, necessarily that Fallout-y. It feels almost like, say, playing Fallout 4 but committing to only doing missions for the Minutemen or something. Which I personally wouldn't mind, because I think I hate that system a lot less than a lot of people do. I'm just not sure whether people would call that necessarily Fallout crossed with XCOM. I'm not sure I'd define XCOM much. In fact, I'm not really sure XCOM's providing into that formula, aside from you've got a base that you need to build up, so you need to get resources for that. I mean, honestly, what you're describing might turn out to be somewhat how Fallout 76 is, where you're gathering resources in order to build up your base, and that might provide you with useful benefits and diddly-diddly-dee. So, you know what? You may just have made a very good prediction there. But yeah, we'll wait and see. I mean, if that is what it is, I've always said I think I'm a lot more excited for Fallout 76 than a lot of people are, so who knows? Also, have you seen the new Fallout Miniatures War game? I've been receiving email alerts about it so far. I haven't been keeping a desperately close eye on it. But yeah, it looks like it's coming along nicely so far. Is there any book or series you've read that you'd like to actually see adapted as a video game? Like Robin Hobb's Assassin series as a BioWare-esque RPG? Ooh, that sounds like a marvellous idea. That does sound like a really, really good idea. However, I'm going to throw a curveball at you. One series of books I do like, I'm not sure if I've mentioned before, Malcolm Price writes the Louis Knight detective books, which are, basically detective novels, except a bit weird and silly and very surrealist, and all of them are set in the Welsh town of Aberystwyth in a weird alternate universe that features an awful lot of druids and ice cream. And they're marvellous, and I'd quite like them to be converted into an LA Noire style game, where there's, proper interrogation systems and whatever. That'd be pretty good, I'd go for that. What is the current number of games you have on Steam? 823 is the current total. Just bought Stellaris and I'm loving it so far. 2 questions. What is your favourite playstyle? Personally, I really like a big collaborative Federation thing, which loads of people seem to not like and say, oh, it's so boring and your Federation buddies don't let you do anything. But, it's just nice to have a bit more of a cooperative thing going on, where someone else becoming more powerful is good, because it just strikes me that every other playstyle where you're not basically in a Federation ultimately boils down to you just growing bigger and bigger and bigger and ultimately eating the galaxy. Federation means there are other empires in the galaxy which you want to see succeed, who aren't you, who you don't want to attack under any circumstances. You want them to win their wars just as much as they want you to win yours. Absolutely, Federations need some improvements, and I'm looking forward to the inevitable big DLC pack that provides a lot of improvements to politics and federations and how all that fits together, that's actually really, really cool. So, yeah, actually, I would say federations, despite the fact it doesn't seem to be a particularly popular opinion. And 2, which Stellaris playthrough or livestream of yours should I watch to better learn the game? I'd go for my most recent one, Apocalypse. I think I fairly well explained that as I was going along, and I'd say that only because my previous ones give a lot of advice that's now become redundant, because as of 2.0, the version that accompanied Apocalypse, pretty much everything I said now is, well, some of it's still relevant, lots of it's redundant because so much in the game has changed. So I just go straight to the Apocalypse one, because that was a bit of a fresh start over for the core mechanics of Stellaris anyway. Name 3 things Norwegian. 1, Norway. Okay, I'm stuck now, sorry. Are you excited for Assassin's Creed Odyssey? Kind of. I mean, you know, I actually really like the Assassin's Creed games. I just have a bit of a complicated relationship with them because I never liked them enough to finish them. I always get a bit fatigued by the map and all the stuff in it. Like, I have fun just dipping my toe in the water, but I never get past, like, say, hour 6 of an Assassin's Creed game. So I've no idea if Desmond is still floating around. As I understand, he died at some point or other, saving the world or something, and now the plot is something to do with video games where the assassins are trying to basically use your brain to hack a Templar video game using a bug program because the video games are propaganda, but you're breaking the propaganda by something. That was what Black Flag was about, right? Is that still the case? I think that's still the case. But yes, obviously, because I know quite a bit about ancient Greece, it will be fun to see. I look forward to seeing it and what it's all about, but I wouldn't necessarily expect a full series. But you never know. You never know. You're not wrong. I did rather enjoy Origins, even though I didn't feel compelled to play it beyond like what you actually saw in the one video I made. But we'll see. We'll see when it comes out if there's a good spot for it to have at the bare minimum a midweek mini-series. Hi John, to continue my Oxford line of questions, what was your favourite part about taking classics at Oxford? You know, there was one really stupid ritual that really stands out to me. Because there are things called Gaudies. A Gaudie is basically an event where previous students come back and have a big fancy dinner, and I suppose the idea is really trying to encourage them to donate money to the relevant college. But at the Classics Gaudies, where, you know, former Classics students were invited back, as a result there were sometimes odd traditions pertaining to the fact that current Classics students should give an update about the actual history of the college and what's like going on in the college at any given moment, except for the slight twist that it was decided that that oration should be given in Latin, despite the fact that loads of those people, you know, wouldn't be able to hear you or translate fast enough if they even kept up with their Latin, and very likely it had been decades since they stopped doing Latin, so they'd probably forgotten enough that they wouldn't be able to. So, therefore, it was one of the jobs of classic students on occasion to basically get some information about what's going on in the college, find a way to translate that into Latin, including trying to render modern concepts. So, you know, you just kind of hoped when it was your turn that the big college news wasn't that they just picked up a new microwave, otherwise that could be very, very interesting indeed. Convert that into Latin, and then speak that to a room of people where probably under 1% of them were in any way capable of understanding what it meant. Because they had little leaflets in front of them that just told them what you were saying, but in English. So it kind of was pointless. It was the most pointless thing imaginable. But hey, it was an experience. It was certainly an experience I shall never forget. Because I had to, when I had to give mine, one of the big bits of college news was a fox had broken into a hen house in the gardens. So I needed to basically give a large dramatic oration, and I kind of hammed it up a little bit. I went right into, like, you know, the tragic language of Virgil's Aeneas. It was, you know, it was like, alas for the poor chickens, slaughtered in their youth by the cunning fox. Oh, fun days. Fun days. So yes, that was probably one of the most wacky classics related things. Dear American John, please perform a dramatic reading of Country Roads. Well, Eric Place, I shall do my best. Country roads, take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, Mountain Mama, take me home Country roads. There you go. It's dreadful. Belong. That's not right. That cannot be right. Okay, fine. Moving on. Moving very, very swiftly on. Hey John, Claire and Tabby, I've recently been playing tabletop games like Settlers of Catan, ooh, good one, and Betrayal House on the Hill. Do you have any suggestions for other games I should buy and play? Claire loves Seven Wonders, I love Archipelago, there's very hard to find enough people to play Archipelago, and Space Trucker.
Galaxy Trucker, John.
So I think we probably put some recommendations forward in that regard. Also, can you give us a list of all the board games you guys have? No, I can't. There's too many of them. That's why I can't. There's too many of them. Claire, could you take a photograph of our board game shelf and just put it in at this point? Because there's too many board games. I can't give you a full list. I can't bloody remember all of them. There's a lot anyway. There's an awful lot. Would you rather live in a world with no pizza or live in a world where every pizza is the best pizza, but when you open the box, a small swarm of bees flies out? Interesting question. Is it just when I open the box? Because if I live in a world with no pizza, that's basically me condemning the entire world to having no pizza. But if it's just a world where pizza is the best pizza, but as a result, like, everybody gets the bees when they open the box, or is it just me? Because if it's just me that opens the box, then basically I'd go for the second option, because at that point I'm making a noble sacrifice. I'm basically saying the entire world gets to have the best pizza in the world, and the only price to pay is I can't have any pizza. So at that point, I'd generally hope that, like, you know, the governments of the world would just have a quick whip round and, you know, give me a bit of a thank you that would set me up for life, because I've just made sure everyone else gets the best pizza in the world. It's a very noble sacrifice. If it's everybody gets the bees when they open the box, I'll probably go for a world with no pizza. Because while pizza is nice, there's lots of other nice things I could do with instead. So it kind of depends on the rules of the box and the bees. If Bethesda continues to bring cryptids into the Fallout games like they're doing with 76, do you have any you would particularly like to see show up in 76 or future games? Ooh, if we ever do get a British Fallout, then I would like a big quest to be about the fearsome beast of Bodmin, which is supposed to be like, you know, depending on who you ask, a giant mutated panther or an escaped, like, black lion or possibly like a saber-toothed tiger that escaped from a glacier at some point or other. Basically, it's just a giant cat creature, and I'd like there to be a massive amount of fear and a village in lockdown because it's so terrified of the beast of Bodmin, and double guards posted every night with spotlights to make sure the beast of Bodmin doesn't actually snatch anyone up in the night, and you go on an epic long journey kind of trailing it and trying to figure out where it is and following clues and trying to eventually track it down, and then it just turns out to be this really small adorable cat that's like really small, and then you can adopt it, and when you find it, like, the quest reward is not just a pile of XP, but like you also get to adopt the cat and you take it back to your settlement, and then it just kind of follows you around. So whenever you're back at your settlement, the beast of Bodmin's just there and it goes meow, and it would be really, really cute. Okay, that's what I want. I want the beast of Bodmin to turn out to just be a really small normal cat. John, why do you pronounce Byzantine the way you do, like Byzantine, as opposed to Byzantine like most other people? I think that's a UK versus US preferred pronunciation. Of course, things to remember is, like, pretty much all words, whenever we're referring to ancient stuff or old stuff, we're almost always getting it wrong. We're not using their pronunciations. We're just using a modern anglicised version of whatever we think the preferred pronunciation for us and the way we think words ought to be pronounced are. So there's not really a right or wrong answer there. Because if we get into the question of, okay, what's the authentic way to pronounce something, you run into difficulty very quickly, where certain languages are going to use sounds and diphthongs and stuff that your mouth and your tongue and your teeth are not used to having to form. And then you basically can't pronounce them. Like, sometimes, like, Claire tells me I cannot do French R's properly. And I try to do French R's properly, but I just end up rolling them way, way, way stupidly too much, and I can't get it right, because my mouth is not used to having to make that sound, because it's not really a thing that happens in English. So, there's no real right or wrong way here, but I think the difference there is actually one is more common in England and one is more common in the US. What has your scariest experience been when driving? Ooh, good question. One time I was driving along a motorway and basically just a massive storm just swept in. It was proper, like, cloudburst territory. So I was just going along. I think it was just in the Sloan, actually. It was just kind of quiet, so I was just kind of pottering along at 70 miles an hour. on the motorway in the slow lane, because there was basically very few people around. There was, a few people. Like, I could see a car, someone's in front of me. I could see a couple of cars in my rearview mirror behind me. So I was not, like, on a completely empty road. And it was starting to get a bit dark, so I didn't have their lights on. And then just this absolute cloudburst just kicked off. It was just absolutely torrential. It was hammering down. And visibility fell to nothing. Like, there had been cars ahead of me where I'd been able to see their red lights at the back previously. I could not see them anymore. I couldn't see more than maybe 15 metres in front of me. And I'm going at 70 miles an hour. And I know for a fact there is a car somewhere in front of me. And I know for a fact there are cars somewhere behind me. And I don't know what anyone's going to decide to do at that moment in time. Because my immediate thought was, I cannot see. I need to pull over into the hard shoulder and stop. But what if someone else is, like, moving slowly on the hard shoulder? Like, I don't want to stop. Because if I stop, what if someone's actually coming quickly up on the outside of me? If I start slowing down, someone's going to go in the back of me, because by the time they're going to see me, it's going to be too late. So my choices were, as I saw them, I could either actually start slowing down in the slow lane, in which case someone could come up the back of me and hit me before I was slow enough to actually pull into the hard shoulder, or I could pull straight over into the hard shoulder and try and brake. But bear in mind, it was suddenly so wet I couldn't brake reliably, not hard. So if I pull into the hard shoulder, someone else might have already pulled into the hard shoulder and stopped, so I might slam into the back of them. So I thought my only option is to try and hold my speed and drive at 70 miles an hour, and just hope no one comes up behind me and no one has, decided to slow down dramatically. Because if someone says they're going to drop their speed to 40, I don't know if I can stop in time when they appear out of this stupid rain squall in front of me. So I felt I was terrified. I was terrified. So I just basically held position. I said, I'm just going to hold my lane. I'm going to hold at 70. And I'm just going to do what I can. By what I can, I just mean basically sit there and hope I don't die. Because there's not much else I can do. I thought any form of taking action, either slowing or moving over into the hard shoulder, is more dangerous than just holding my current position. And thankfully, about 2 minutes later, it eased really quickly and moved straight off. But it was terrifying. I was genuinely terrified. I think I was about 18 or 19 when that happened as well, and I hadn't been driving long. So that was fun as well. Why don't you use some people from the Discord as voice actors for Skies of Arcadia? Because it would be an absolute flipping nightmare. If I had different people contributing voices to Skies of Arcadia, I'd need to have all of them record their lines individually, send the lines to me. I don't know where I get the scripts from. I assume I'd have to actually send out scripts to them. They'd have to record it. They'd have to send it back. I'd then have to piece the scripts together bit by bit, sync it with the video, because the speed at which you're reading it might be different from the speed at which I'm pressing the A button to move from text to text. So that's going to be a nightmare. It would just be the worst editing job imaginable. Every single episode would take 10 hours to put together. And that's before the fact that what happens if someone's got a much lower quality microphone than everyone else, or is recording in a different scenario. It's going to sound really bad if there's a conversation between two characters and one of them is very audibly quieter or more muffled or more echoey, or generally it's a lower quality recording than the other. Plus, it's very hard to do dialogue that sounds right and naturalistic when you're recording it in isolation. So one person might read a line with one intonation which the other person would totally not react to because they were all recorded separately. In general, while it's a fun idea, it's completely not workable. I think the result would be terrible, to be honest. So I need to find a different solution for Skies of Arcadia. I'll just need to provide the voices myself. Did you play any games of Crusader Kings 2 before starting the game for the video to learn it, or did you go into it with no prior experience? I played about 20 hours and I watched a bunch of videos after that point, during it, to get to grips with things, because there's a lot of systems, some of which are really unclear, and some of them, precisely how succession and all of that works, that's still a bit of a mystery to me, because I think it's a little bit unclear. So, you know what, I'll figure it out as I go. But I've decided, I didn't want to go in with no experience, so that'll be very frustrating for fans. Plus, it would I think it wouldn't work well, because then I'd see something and be like, oh, I see, it works like this, and it probably doesn't work like this. Because the first few times I played, I totally misunderstood everything. So, and then after we've been constantly like, issuing corrections saying, oh, sorry, I said this, that's not the case. I think it would have been a bad experience for everyone, because people who know the game well would have been really frustrated with it, and people who don't know the game well would have been totally lost and been like, oh, I thought it was this, but actually now it's this, and now actually he said it's not like that at all, and it's this other thing. I think it would have been much worse. So I think I've hit a happy medium. What are your thoughts on game-to-movie adaptations? Has there ever actually been a good one? Actually, in all fairness, you did mention the Resident Evil movies, which I think actually got better. And they're just kind of stupid fun. Admittedly, they're basically nothing to do with Resident Evil. They came up with their own entirely separate plot, and almost entirely were built around an entirely separate new character. So, you know what? Fine. The Adventures of Alice were fun. I enjoyed those. Let's just stick with them, because other than that, it doesn't seem to work out very well. I'm Australian and starting to plan 3 months of backpacking around Europe. Any less touristy places you can recommend? Ooh, I'm not so useful here, to be honest, because I don't travel much, but I'll give you a couple of locations that are less visited but stunningly beautiful pertaining to the ancient world. So if you happen to be passing through Greece, the Sanctuary of Apollo at Delphi is stunning. It's very, very high altitude. It's fairly remote, and the actual modern town around Delphi is very tiny, so not that many people head out that way, but it is stunning. So it's on the edge of this very steep valley. You're very, very high up, so it's just got stunning views. It's a wonderful place. You can it's one of those sites where you can look at it and you think, okay, I can understand how people in history came here and just knew this was a holy place. It feels very serene. It's beautiful there. And as for around Italy, not exactly like unvisited, but less visited, are the water gardens of the Villa d'Este, which I generally try and make an effort to visit if I'm ever happening to be in Italy, because it's just a beautiful, cool place, because a lot of Rome's very hot. Because Rome is a really interesting city, because there's lots of really old stuff there, but it's not like it's separate or anything. It's not like, the ancient district. It basically just lives alongside modern stuff. Like, there's roads with lots of traffic constantly going around the Colosseum. Ancient stuff just basically snuggles up against modern stuff. And as a result, Rome tends to be, it's very crowded, the tourist stuff's very crowded, it's very, very hot. So I find it very, very nice to go out to the Villa d'Este, which are water gardens. So it's open, it's green, it's cool. It makes a really nice change from the often very packed touristy spots in Rome itself. So I'd recommend those two. Now that YouTube Premium, formerly YouTube Red, has rolled out to more countries, have you noticed a difference in income? I actually went and looked this up because I saw this question ahead of time. Not as yet. Not yet anyway. I'm not sure exactly what day it started, so I'm not sure whether I ought to have done yet. And also, YouTube data sometimes just moves over time. Sometimes like the first data you see is kind of an estimate, and then they fix it later to be more precise. So far, I have not seen what looks much like any form of uptick. I mean, like, up to this point, it has been quite significant for us because, we have a lot of US viewers and US subscribers, and that's mainly where it's been so far in the US. So if it does actually get rolled out and is more successful in lots of countries, it should, logically, make a difference, but I've not seen the evidence for it yet. And that's nice. Actually, one of the things I am interested in is one of the other things they announced was, this integration of Teespring, where you could actually have, merchandise that's specific to just that video being available below. And you could just basically have it being generated by Teespring. You don't need to, work on logistics or anything because it's print on demand. So literally, if no one buys it, then it doesn't even matter. But if someone does buy it, it's actually printed just for them and shipped over to them. And that's kind of interesting because, it might be fun to, if there's, say, a scene or a thing I've drawn, say, in past part 2, or a joke or a quote I'm particularly proud of, or I think is particularly funny, it might be fun to actually, have that be available. So, I'm not going to, push it because there's no point in me pushing it. Because if it doesn't sell, it doesn't actually cost me anything. But, if just, 2 or 3 people in the world think that's really funny and just think, you know what, I'll have that on a t-shirt because it's a funny quote and why not, then, it just helps a little bit. And we'll look at it. Honestly, I don't know how well it's going to do because I'm not always great at judging these things. When I started doing the live streams, I thought Super Chat was going to be tiny and insignificant. And actually now it's really big. It's a really kind of big part of, what the channel makes. So yeah, I am not always good at judging these things. Up to now, merchandise has been fairly small, so we'll see. We'll see about that. We're not like some of the channels that really rely on their merchandise, because some of, I think, especially the younger focus channels that have younger audiences than what we have, I think they really rely on merch sales. They make a lot of money through kind of kids buying merch. We don't get that so much, but then we've never put that much focus on it, so that's probably on us as much as anything else. John, did you ever learn that you don't use a whisk to mix together butter and sugar? What do you use then? Oh, could you use like one of like a... Like, what are those things? The things like the masher. The thing that you use to mash potato into mashed potato. Would you use that? Is that what you use? I don't know. I would have liked it if your question actually, told me what I was supposed to use. Now I still don't know. P.S. My friend found both you and Claire to be quite charming. Well, I'm certainly charming. Oh, Claire is too. Go on then. Would you be willing to put together a page or similar to allow us to find other MATN fans to play Fallout 76 with? I have been thinking about that. I think Claire and I have briefly discussed this. Whether we could do some form of system where there's like, a special room on Discord for people to actually find each other. If they wanted to find buddies to actually go around Fallout 76 with. As I said before, until we know more about the game and exactly how its system of matchmaking service works, I can't really confirm details because I don't know what it's going to be, but watch this space. Absolutely, we would like to do something for that. John, what's your opinion of collectible card games? Honestly, they've never been so much my thing because I've always been a firm believer in the very kind of old-fashioned notion these days that you ought to buy a game and then own the game. The idea of like having to buy a starter thing and then having to constantly buy booster packs kind of puts me off. Because I don't really like spending money like that, to be honest. But then, as you say, in video games, where it's things like Hearthstone or whatever, obviously that's kind of taken away. I mean, real-life collectible card games I've never been super into. Like, just about everyone else of my generation, back when it's originally a thing, obviously I had some Pokemon cards, and I've still got them floating around somewhere. They were never anything particularly fancy, just a handful of booster packs here and there, but never had a proper deck that you could actually fight with. In fact, I'm not sure I ever did a single proper game or anything like that. I just enjoyed having the cards because I liked the game Pokemon as well. So I wouldn't bet against Hearthstone or Gwent or whatever at some point or other. Do you make a script and record your audio after you finish recording videos? Almost never. There are only a handful of videos in the entire history of the channel where that has been a thing. Normally it's the video discussion pieces. Fallout 3 is better than you think, things like that. There was one video where I had to do that, where I basically had to fake the entire video because the audio recording died like 40 seconds in, so I just didn't have any audio. And honestly, I can't remember which one it is now. It's one of the episodes of Murdered Soul Suspect, which I did a small mini-series of back in the day. Might have been part 3 or 4 or 5. I can't remember now. One of them, I lost all the audio, so I needed to literally rewatch the video, and while I was rewatching it, redo the commentary, trying to remember what I'd originally said and recreating it as closely as I could. And I think I did a pretty good job, because as far as I'm aware, no one called me out on it. So that was good. Other than like a few tiny exceptions like that, pretty much everything is done live as I'm recording it. What's the best DLC you've ever played? Oh, I've said this before. It's Medieval 2's Kingdom expansion, which basically contained 4 different campaigns, all of which had loads of different factions you could play as, all of which were arguably as big and interesting as Thrones of Britannia, but like it was just a really cheap DLC pack for Medieval 2. There was like the Mayan and Aztec campaign. There was one, was that the same as the American one? Because there was also... No, that must have been the same as the American-y ones. There was a Mayan-y, Aztec-y, American-y one. There was a Britannia one. There was, like, one set around, like, Poland and Lithuania. And there was one set in the Middle East during the Crusades. And they were really cool. All of them had their own unique units and their own unique time periods and their own unique everything. Like, their own unique mechanics. Like, there was a really interesting culture mechanic inside the Britannia one in Medieval 2, where if England went and like ate a bunch of Welsh territories, the Welsh territories would slowly become culturally English over time. It was kind of like the same way religion worked in Medieval 2, except it was culture, so it took time for an actual town to flip to being English culture. And until a town was a certain threshold of your culture, you couldn't train units there. You needed to be, a certain level of English culture in order to have English units being produced, because, like, I guess the idea was, like, the Welsh people weren't willing to serve in your army, or the forms of warfare they were good at didn't suit the type of unit you were trying to train, or something like that. But it was a really interesting system, and it kind of almost reminds me a little bit of some of, like, the culture and the de jure shift and the cultural shift over time that actually occurs in Crusader Kings 2. There were just really good ideas in that, and every single campaign had its own really fun ideas as well. It was absolutely lovely. So yeah, 100% that sort of thing. That was an amazing DLC pack. This one is for Claire. How is John as a boss? Okay, I'm going to hand this one over to Claire, and I'm also going to pinky swear right now, I am not going to listen to this, so Claire gets to give you an honest answer now, because I'm not going to listen to this afterward. So Claire can give you an actual honest answer, but you guys just tell me what she said.
Actually, John's pretty good as a boss. I think there's two things to consider, right? He is my boss in the sense that I have a contract with him to do a certain amount of work, and he's good as that in the sense that, like, he respects my right as an employee, and that's quite important. But he's also, like, really good as a line manager, because that's something he's done before in some of his previous jobs where he had to manage people and, like, help them figure out how to do their job efficiently and stuff. That's something that's been really useful to me because I've not always been the best at, like, prioritizing stuff, and John's really helped with that. And also both of us try to be really diligent about maintaining a firm separation between our work time and our home time, and specifically my work time, because my work time is more concretely defined than John, because I work a certain number of hours, whereas John, whilst he does try not to work all the time, he does work a lot of the time. But yeah, that's just really important to us, maintaining a good employee to manager / boss relationship, as well as our relationship in general.
What would you do to the endings of Mass Effect 3 to make them better? You can't. You can't change the ending of Mass Effect 3 in isolation because it fits into the setup. You'd need to change the setup of the whole game. You could keep, like, the core of it as is. Like, okay, you go to Chunka in order to do the business with Rex and defeat that Reaper and the Genophage and whatever, and the business with the Quarians and the Geth and all of that. Mostly you can keep the core of it there, but I think the plot elements you'd need to pretty much strip out most of it, because it too much sets up during the game where it's going. You can't just have a total 180 at the end. So, honestly, I think the best thing you could do is just go back to what they were clearly originally setting up, which was to do with, like, dark matter and something, where stars were dying too young and investigations into dark matter, which are brought up a couple of times during Mass Effect 2, where the clear implication is, okay, there's going to be some form of plot twist going on here, where actually it's going to turn out the Reapers are doing something that will actually turn out to be really, really good to stop the universe exploding or something. Or you can stop the Reapers, but in doing so, you are actually, you know, basically saying, okay, the problem of dark matter, we're just going to have to deal with it, and you're basically condemning the galaxy in, 500 years or whatever. Like, the galaxy is going to explode in 500 years, or you can accept that the Reapers are going to kill loads of really highly evolved life forms, but at the end of it, the galaxy gets to keep turning for, you know, the next cycle and the next cycle and the next cycle. And I'm not sure how they'd science hand wave it away, but that would have been a more interesting dilemma, with potentially, as like the actual ultimate good ending, you can destroy the Reapers knowing you're doing the right thing if you did enough setup. So if you made all the right choices all the way through, if you had enough, like, scientific minds working for you and the galaxy was united together, then the ultimate happy ending would be something like, okay, we blew up the Reapers, but Shepard did that knowing full well that they already kind of could solve the problem, and there could have been optional side missions inside Mass Effect 3 where, you know, if you'd actually bothered to do your research and if you'd actually, you know, dug into what Tali said and what the journalist who you ran into on Ilium, that's where she was, who you ran into on Mass Effect 2, and you actually dug into that in Mass Effect 3. There could be a whole bunch of missions where you actually, you know, went over and investigated this problem by yourself and discovered it ahead of time. And if you weren't paying attention, if you didn't, you know, 100% the game, then this would be a surprise for you at the end by the Reapers. But, like, actually, if you prepare, when the Reapers or the kid or whatever say at the end, oh yeah, there's this business with dark matter, and you say, actually, yeah, I know all about that, and we've got a solution to it, and we're working on it now. where logically the Reapers would go, oh, can we just check you're working? Yeah, here you go. Have a look. See, oh, that's actually a really good solution that doesn't involve killing everyone. Okay, fair enough. Well, in that case, our purpose is no longer necessary because we are machines, so we fulfill a purpose. So I guess we'll all just deactivate now. Bye! And there'd be an ultimate good ending where you didn't have to make the terrible choice because you did the work. So, you either have two bad options where you just choose your preferred option, or if you really put the work and you get everything right, there's one really good solution, which would fit into Mass Effect 3 really nicely. Basically, that's exactly the same as the ending of Rannoch, where you side with the Quarians, but all the Geth have to die, or you side with the Geth and all the Quarians have to die. Or if you get everything right, there's one option where if you've kind of got enough things spot on, you can say, actually, no, everybody lives. All right, you guys are just going to be friends now and you're going to share everything and there's going to be peace and yay. So that works really nicely. I think thematically and like structurally, it would follow on from Mass Effect 3 a lot better. But you can't just change the ending. You'd have to change like loads of stuff during it as well. You need to take out the whole concept of oh, we are your salvation because we need to kill you so lesser races can rise up or something. You'd need to bring the threat of something that the Reapers are actually sorting out rather than just turning them into basically giant squid Thanos. So, yeah, that's the sort of thing I'd do, and I think that would have arguably worked a lot better. And honestly, I think that's what BioWare were working towards in Mass Effect 2. I just don't know why they changed their mind in Mass Effect 3, because I think what they, jumped ship to was a lot worse. Do you think BioWare is going to be shut down in the next 2 or 3 years? I really doubt it. Even though they've had, a bit of a rough period recently, I think they've still got enough goodwill floating around and enough good properties they've developed in the past that just with a few changes of senior management, I suspect they could very easily get back onto their feet. I don't think they're going anywhere. What are some ways that other YouTubers monetize that you currently do not? Honestly, the only big one that actually seems significant at this point is taking money in the form of sponsorships and brand deals, which I've just never been comfortable with, because I don't think you really can simultaneously take money from companies to, speak well of their products while also taking money directly from the community. I think Patreon and sponsorships are kind of an either or. I'm much happier on Patreon than doing that. And as I was saying earlier, merch we don't really push very hard. We could probably push merch a lot harder, but I don't really like the hard sell of ending every video with, hey, don't forget about buying a cap and a t-shirt, a backpack, and the new bobbleheads. Buy one of them. I don't really like the hard sell of that. So I'm kind of happier with the scenario that I've got. I mean, in theory, I could probably push a couple of things a lot harder. I could actually mention the Patreon on the channel occasionally, which I never do. I'm very bad at that. I could push merch a lot harder and have a lot more merch coming in. All sorts of things. We could do donation incentives a bit better, but I don't like that. I like the super chats being something that people choose to do freely. I don't really like them being tied to incentives for the most part, in the same way that the Patreon tiers aren't really tied to real incentives for the most part. They're just it's just what people want to do, which I'm much happier with. But yeah, we could probably if we were really focused on making as much money as we could probably make quite a bit more than we are now. But honestly, we're fine at the minute. We're comfortable. So it's something I wouldn't want to do, because I suspect it would also be bad for the long-term health of the channel. Because if we were to go around just pushing to try and get every single penny we could out of everything, then we're probably going to annoy a few people and just kind of scare a few people off, because it's going to get annoying if I did that all the time. So I think we're in a pretty good place right now, and I think with it being me and Claire, that's also a pretty good scenario in general. Hi John, how many push-ups can you do? Ooh, excellent question. So what I'm going to do, hang on, I'm just going to move my chair over here. I'm sitting down in a chair. All right, which one's the push-up? Okay, right, so I'm probably a bit mumbling. Ow, okay, that was not good. And, okay, 1, 2, 3. I'm just about to remind you, it's really hot and I'm sweating. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Okay, I'm bored now. Okay, that's enough. It's really warm in here. I feel like I could probably very easily have got to 20 there, but I don't want to. It's really flipping warm. I'm going to bring my chair back over here now. Right, now I need some water. Okay. 14 confirmed, but I feel I could have gone higher. I feel I could... Please don't ask me to do that again. If you had to guess, how many deaths do you think the Xenophile tabbies caused? Ooh, well, we blew up a good 10 planets, and those planets were sometimes very well occupied. So we're talking tens of billions as a base. So yeah, that's quite a lot of death, to be honest, for a Xenophile empire, yes. John, did you watch Solo, A Star Wars Story? Did you enjoy it? I haven't actually yet. Which actually I think puts me in line with a lot of people, because not very many people went to see that, unfortunately. Yeah, I just didn't really, think it looked... I thought it looked okay. It looked fine. I just kind of, it didn't look exciting enough to me to, go to the cinema and spend money on the cinema for. Just because, prequels for characters that aren't really proper parts of the Star Wars franchise don't really desperately interest me. And then I saw the reviews where it sounded like it was very focused on the sort of fan service that no fans had really ever asked for. Weird things like, where does Han's pistol come from? Where did he get his blaster? I never wanted to know that. He had a blaster. He used it on certain occasions to shoot people first. And that's about it, really. So... yeah, it was just a bit of an odd one for me, so I might well catch it whenever it goes to a service where I can just catch it at home, but I didn't really care enough to actually go to the cinema to watch it. Have you ever read Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel? It's a different take on the post-apocalypse following an acting group travelling from town to town. I have not. I've not actually heard of that before, but I have actually been meaning to find a new book to dig into. I'm currently between books, so I may well give that a look. Thank you for the recommendation.
Ooh, I actually have a copy of that on my shelf. I'm gonna go and pop it by John's laptop right now.
John, take something you liked from 3 different games from the previous month, combine them into a new game. What game would you create? Okay, I'm going to take the adorable, helpful, friendly dog from Overland. I'm going to take the awesome Demolition Smash Fest of Wreckfest. I'm going to take the awesome giant dinosaur escapes from Jurassic World Evolution. So basically, my story is going to be about someone who enters demolition derbies in a great big car and tries to win them, but dinosaurs are also going around the arena picking people off. So you've got this awesome friendly dog, and the dog can be given various tasks to help out. Like when you're passing another car, you can order the dog to hop into the actual car of one of your competitors and distract him and bark at him and bite his hand while he's trying to change gear, which will distract another driver so you can get a good ram in on him. And if one of the dinosaurs is coming for you, the dog can hop out and go woof woof woof, and then the dinosaur will start following the dog, and then the dog can lead the dinosaur away from you. But don't worry, the dinosaur never eats the dog. There's a system in place. The dog's like Elizabeth in BioShock Infinite, where she can never actually die. So the dog will just lead the dinosaur off towards someone else, and then the dog will just return to you. But there's a cooldown, because obviously it takes time for the dog to actually get back. She has to loop around the long way, because the dinosaur has to pay attention to someone else first. So yes, basically, dinosaur demolition dog day. That's what I want to create. Any chance of an Age of Empires 2 live stream at some point? I don't know, because have I ever even played Age of Empires 2? I'm not sure I have. So I generally try not to live stream stuff I know nothing about, so I'd need to look into the game first. You should play Far Cry 2, the best game of that series. I have been meaning to look at it at some point. Actually, I have played Far Cry 2 once in the past. I didn't play it much. Far Cry 3 was the first one I played much of, and Far Cry 4 was the first one I got really properly super into. Really enjoyed Far Cry 4. So yeah, I think they're all very, very good games indeed. But absolutely, I should at some point do a little retrospective for the original Far Cry and Far Cry 2. Here's a fun work question. Do you pay VAT on your games? Okay, so here's the interesting thing. Because obviously Many a True Nerd is actually a business, and it has to be because we have to pay, proper taxes and everything. Technically we shouldn't pay VAT, but when you buy a game, VAT is included. So basically, the way that works in the UK is you just buy it with the VAT, and then you keep proper documentation, receipts, whatever. And then later, when you're basically saying to HMRC, which is our tax services, how much you've earned so they can tell you how much tax you need to pay, at that point you say, also, I bought these things and VAT was included, and then the VAT that you paid there is then taken off your tax bill to offset the fact that you weren't supposed to be paying the tax, because tax is supposed to be for consumers, not for businesses. So basically we do pay VAT, but then we get it back later. In Stellaris, will you ever be returning to the Snivlets? I'd love to have some closure on those guys. If we ever do a future run, there's a good chance maybe I'll let the Snivlets of Snorf return. So possibly the next time there's a major Stellaris expansion and we do a new run, the Snivlets might well come back. What's your favourite non-domestic animal? Otters. Otters are the best. I love otters. I love how they go to sleep on the water, just holding each other's hands. It's adorable. If you could wipe one game from your mind so you could experience it all over, what game would you choose? New Vegas. I'd choose New Vegas because I absolutely love New Vegas. But the problem with New Vegas is pretty much of all the modern Fallout games, it's the one that's the most curated. Like, everything is pretty much in a fixed position. Everything's broadly always going to work out the same way. Enemies are all pretty much fixed spawns. When there are fights between NPCs, for the most part, it's because the game sets up because there's supposed to be a fight between the NPCs. Sometimes you do just see wacky stuff happening that has just basically procedurally occurred because something that wasn't supposed to happen has happened. But, like, 99% of the time, what you're seeing is a curated experience where I've seen it before. So I absolutely love New Vegas, and I really, really admire it. Back in the day, I used to replay it a lot. I don't replay it so much these days because now I know it so well, it doesn't surprise me anymore, which is also one of the things I kind of tried to bring out about Fallout 3 when I was doing the Is Better Than You Think video, because Fallout 3 has the advantage that because so much is just being generated at random in its wasteland, you can see new stuff you've never seen before. It continues to surprise me in a way that New Vegas doesn't. That's not to say Fallout 3 is better than New Vegas. I think New Vegas is absolutely the better game, which is something a surprisingly large number of people didn't really pick out of the Fallout 3 is better than you think video. Fallout 3 is better than you think does not mean Fallout 3 is better than New Vegas. Completely got that one wrong. That's a total misinterpretation of what I was trying to say there. But I would go for New Vegas anyway. Which obscure bits of history would you love to see in a video game? What kind of game would it be? What I'd really love, by the way, is I'd love games that are set around those moments when countries had massive empires. You don't really think about having massive empires. There are periods in European history not that long ago when Sweden was pretty much one of the most powerful, terrifying empires going and seized huge swathes of land. And there are other periods not too far from that, actually, where Lithuania was a massive world power that controlled huge amounts of territory. I'd like games that focused on those empires we don't really know about very much. I don't really know what I'd want those games to be honest. Something in the nature of Kingdom Come Deliverance seems like a good solution to that sort of thing. Or maybe a Total War game, that sort of thing would work too. But it would just be nice to get a bit of love for, big, important historical empires that no one really ever seems to acknowledge in gaming for the most part. Would you ever think about doing a modded Stellaris series? Probably not, to be honest, just because Stellaris is getting updated so much with new DLC and new updates and new mechanics on such a regular basis. I don't feel like I need to mod it, because by the time I get round to a new series, it'll be because there's been, new story packs and new content packs out. There'll be brand new mechanics, probably and hopefully, related to politics and subterfuge and trade. So once those are out, I kind of feel like I don't really need mods, because for me, mods are how you keep an old game fresh after it stopped receiving regular updates. But Paradox Grand Strategy games keep getting regular updates forever. So aside from small quality of life stuff, I don't really see the need to mod it. Why did you take a classics degree and what did you get out of it? I took a classics degree because I was good at it. I was good at it and because I enjoyed it and because I thought I was good enough at it that I could get into a good university, which turned out to be the case. And I figured that if you got a good degree from a good university, that would be worth it. If you go to a good enough university, kind of at that point, the actual degree, unless it's specifically a vocational degree, you study medicine because you want to be a doctor, aside from vocational stuff, it doesn't really matter what the degree is in, because you're just kind of demonstrating that, okay, you're a person who can learn a bunch of stuff very quickly. You've demonstrated you are presumably clever and have dealt with an intensive, quite hard environment fairly well. So that's kind of all I wanted to get out of it, really, because I recognised early on that I didn't know what I wanted to do after university. So the best thing I could do was just study something I knew I was good at the best place I could study it. I didn't really have a plan better than that. Okay, people, if you're young and you're planning to go to university, have a better plan than I did. I know it worked out for me, but seriously, have a better plan, because I was ludicrously bad at planning that sort of thing. Have you ever taken a look at the game Darkest Dungeon? I've never played it myself, but I've seen a lot about it and I know a bit about it. I agree, it looks really, really cool. So expect to see at bare minimum a one-off of that at some point or other. I've just come back from the UK. I have some observations I'd like some answers on. Why are there no doorknobs on doors? There's a lock and sometimes a thing to pull the door shut, but rarely an actual doorknob for turning. Depends whether you're in a residential or a public building. In residential buildings and rooms, you will overwhelmingly find there are doorknobs all over the shop. But in like doors for shops and public areas, for the most part, there's not. And I assume that is just because people might have their hands full, like if they're shopping, so it's useful for them to be able to just like, push the door with their shoulder or have the door working via an automated system, so a doorknob will be very inconvenient. And I guess it's also probably a matter of public hygiene, which is if you've got a door that people are going in and out of a lot all day, every day, do you want everyone to have to touch the same doorknob? Probably not. That's probably bad for public health. Why does there seem to be coffee shops on every corner, but not really a place to get a cuppa? Just about every coffee shop will serve tea. You just have to ask for it. But absolutely, like all the Pret and Costas and Cafe Neras and whatever, they all will serve you tea. Normally quite a decent selection if you ask. Your sandwich options at Marks & Spencer's are amazing. They absolutely are, I'm thinking about opening a shop with just cheese and chutney combinations. It would be a game changer in the US. Good. Excellent. That's excellent to hear. Because you see peanut butter all over the shop this side, so it'd be nice for us to export something straight back at you. Why do pubs seem to shut at 10? That does seem fairly early. I'd expect pubs to be open till 11 at least, and if they've got a proper late night license, quite possibly significantly later than that. So I'm not sure where you were, but that might have just been a bit of a quirk of the particular pubs close by to wherever you were staying. So I'm not quite sure. But yes, as you pointed out, clubs do definitely open later than that. But yeah, I know for a fact some pubs with late licenses will stay definitely open later than 10. So not sure what you ran into there, I'm afraid. How are you liking Crusader Kings 2? Oh, I'm loving it. It's great fun. I feel like it could be, a new Stellaris for me. Like, I just need to basically work my way through the Paradox Grand Strategy games, because clearly I'm going to love all of them. I'm going to love Europa Universalis 4 and Victoria 2 and all the rest of it. So I just need to slowly work my way through all of them. And kind of the reason I wanted to do it now is because, of course, they've just announced Imperator, whenever that's coming out. Does that even have a release date yet? I'm not sure if it does. So I kind of wanted to do Crusader Kings 2 ahead of that. So I, played a lot of Stellaris, played a lot of Crusader Kings 2. I'll probably try and just quietly in my own time do just 10, 20 hours in Europa Universalis 4 and Victoria 2, just in the same way that I did in Crusader Kings, just to get to grips with some of the basic mechanics. So when I go into Imperator, I'll actually have an idea what's going on. I'll be able to see, okay, this system's like in this game, this system's like in that game. I see how this all fits together, so I'll go in much better informed. I know you studied classics, but you seem pretty big into modern military history when you played Panzer Medals. What kind of modern history do you like in general? Honestly, I don't have, a single thing I look at and I'm super into. I don't just, think, oh, yeah, I'm really into the history of specifically a particular era of warfare. Sometimes I just kind of, hear about something and I think, oh, that sounds really cool. And I'll just, spend a few hours just reading up everything I can find about it. So I just have, really obscure just bits of knowledge for just completely random stuff. And just, I happen at one point to just kind of, I think, read some articles about the history of the tank, because tanks being a relatively recent invention in human history and how very quickly they became a crucial part of warfare, that was just fascinating to me. So I just kind of read some stuff up about that. How far ahead are you in Crusader Kings 2? Seems like a game that might benefit from tips and advice, but I could also see that as causing the same problems as the XCOM advice. What I'm trying to do is not get more than 2 parts ahead, probably, maybe 4 absolute flipping tops. I'm taking general advice, but if people write really long essays saying, it begins with, hey, just so you know, you should totally move this particular member of your council to here for this, I stop reading. I just am not reading the really, really in-depth advice because I don't want that. I'm happy for really high-level general advice where people are like, hey, just so you know, there's don't forget about the button when you're sieging, where if you push the button, you can launch an assault. It's very costly in terms of men, but if you're in a hurry, you can take something a lot faster. It's oh, great, that's really convenient. Thank you for letting me know that. But when people are just hey, this is it's really important you understand that this is going to happen and this country actually has this particular succession law, so therefore you have to, it's no, I'm not reading that because it's going to ruin it for me. It's going to ruin it just like XCOM, and I'm going to end up min-maxing without even meaning to, and by the end of the game it's going to be boring, and the same people who gave me that advice are going to be the first to complain about it. So, if the advice gets too specific and appears to be very much trying to tell me what to do, I'm just totally ignoring it. Whereas if it's general advice that's giving me helpful hints about mechanisms I might not be familiar with, or is answering questions I myself posed, then I'm kind of taking that on board. So I'm hoping that's going to be a happy medium. John, I'm thinking about subscribing to YouTube Red to help out some of the YouTubers I watch occasionally. Would it be better for me to just pick 10 or so YouTubers I like and maybe just put $1 or something to them each month via Patreon? Yeah, absolutely. Like, if you have a small number of YouTubers you're really fond of, then just kind of, rather than kind of giving, how much is it? How much is premium now? I can't remember. Rather than giving that money to YouTube and having them distribute it via a weird thing, you'd be better off just picking your favorites and just putting $1 to each of them. Because the thing is, like, you mentioned Jenny Nicholson, Nerd Cubed, and Up Is Not Jump. What's going to happen is if you kind of get red because you want to support me, Jenny Nicholson, Nerd Cube, and Up Is Not Jump, then I'm going to get the vast majority of that money because I'm putting out videos more often and they're quite long videos. Then Dan's going to get a fair bit of that money because he kind of, uploads the live streams on occasion and posts semi-regularly. Jenny Nicholson and Up Is Not Jump are going to get almost no money because they post very rarely with really high-effort videos. So as a result, and those tend to be quite short, so as a result, the actual watch time for them is going to be very low. So the distribution is not always fair. It absolutely favours people who put out a lot of content and really screws over people who don't put out much at all. Now, if you're like, you watch an awful lot of YouTube and there's like, 40 different channels who you watch on a daily basis and they all put out content somewhat similarly, then probably the best thing to do is, YouTube Red or YouTube Premium these days is a good solution. If there's just like a handful of people you're like super fond of, but they also put out content a very like different basis from each other, probably your best bet is to actually give $1 directly to each of them through Patreon. And like, even if you spend less overall, they'll probably get more out of it because, a whole bunch of Red might be diverted to other stuff you watch where you're just watching it casually but you're not really a fan of it, and YouTube will take a small cut off the top, which is more than Patreon will, and da-da-da-da. Yeah, basically, make your own mind up based on that information anyway. John, you mentioned a while back you were thinking of playing The Last of Us at least as a mini-series. Yes, now that Last of Us 2 has been kind of formally shown off at E3, I'm going to basically say I will absolutely do Last of Us in some capacity or other before Last of Us 2 comes out. Are there games you stay away from because the community around the game seems too toxic to approach? Very few to be honest. Honestly, I didn't have a fun time with the Undertale community when I made a couple of videos there, because that just seemed to be the people who were the biggest fans of the game just seemed to be the biggest critics. I'm not playing it right, I'm not appreciating it correctly. Didn't have a fun time with that. I wouldn't play Overwatch on the channel again because honestly, I felt like the people who were actual fans and knew what they were doing in Overwatch were not in any way open to or interested in seeing people they otherwise like watching playing Overwatch if they're not playing it that well. Like, as far as I could tell, the community seems to be only interested in people who are like super hardcore good at it, so I won't be bothering with that. I still play it sometimes. I quite like Overwatch, but I won't put it on the channel again because the community just seems, I wouldn't say toxic. Toxic's not the right word for Overwatch's community, but they are certainly not open to outsiders trying their game. They don't want to see people just dipping their toe in the water and having fun. That's not good enough. The people need to be good, otherwise people are going to be annoying about it. Oh, blimey heck. I'm trying to recreate your build from Fallout 3 Kill Everything. Sadly, the level up to 6 was cut. I got the stats right. I'm missing the perk. Could you make an educated guess to which perk you would have taken at level 6? Oh, I've no clue. I've absolutely no clue. If my choices for what I've taken so far were Black Widow, Intense Training, Educated Comprehension, Toughness, and Strong Bag, I'd guess I'd have gone for Educated, because it's the obvious one to go for. It's a very powerful perk, but I have no clue. That is just a guess. When are we going to get an Everjane community playday then? Probably never, as, one of the people who was running the game came up to me and warned me off and told me I'd be kicked out, so I'm not sure I'm welcome back to Everjane. I think me just kind of sitting in the back of my carriage yelling insults to everyone else who was on the server didn't go down well. You did it! Fallout 3 is better than you think is now the most viewed video on the channel. It is! At about 1.6, coming up on 1.7 million views. It has indeed overtaken Fallout New Vegas Kill Everything, which I'm really thrilled about. I'm so happy that's true. Because I look back and I think Fallout New Vegas Kill Everything, though it's really good and there are some really good jokes in it, it looks really scruffy, and I don't think I sound right. The editing's really bad quality. So I'm kind of glad that something that I'm really genuinely proud of is now the most viewed video on the channel. Very happy about that. How do we know how words were really pronounced in Latin back in Roman times? Excellent question. We can put in some pretty darn good guesses. Like, there are people who specialise in precisely this study of figuring out how language evolves, where they can take languages today and move them backwards and make some excellent guesses. Poetry often gives us, though poetry doesn't actually rhyme in the ancient world, rhyming poetry is not really so much of a thing. It does give us an idea for meter and rhythm, and whether a letter therefore should be soft or hard in terms of how that affects how the poetry would be read and how it would flow. There are a small number of linguistic guides. Of course, as Rome expanded, it had to actually teach the people who it was assimilating how to speak Latin. So we've got a handful of useful hints from that. So, we can put some reasonably strong guesses. Caesar was actually pronounced Kaiser, but we can't be certain. You're right, absolutely. Sometimes we're just making the best guesses that we can, but in many cases we've got some reasonable evidence upon which to make assumptions, but absolutely we could be 100% wrong. John, have you ever heard of Valkyria Chronicles? I have indeed, and I've heard many good things. It's not actually on my list at the minute in terms of anything that's coming up soon, but I am absolutely aware of it. It is 100% on my radar. How long did it take you to get to 100 subscribers? Ooh, interesting question. Hang on, let me find out using data. About 4 months by the looks of it. If I had to guess based on the data I'm seeing in front of me, it looks like about 4 months after I began, that's when we hit 100. When are you coming to America? I know you talked about working in Los Angeles, where I live, in your videos on GTA 5. Be cool to see you at a convention around here sometime. There are no current plans for me to visit America. That was back when I did a different full-time job at the same time, and that was years ago at this point. That was a couple of jobs back. So there are not actually any plans for me to come to America anytime soon. The game shows I attend are generally the ones in and around just England itself, because we get EGX. If I was to go abroad for one, I'd probably stick to the European ones for the time being. So there are no plans for me to visit E3, especially as the entirety of the important bits of E3 are actually all live streamed. So it's kind of a long way to go for not a huge amount of purpose. Recommended ways to read Aristophanes, in particular translations or other material to read before or after. I'm not going to be very good at giving you a recommended translation, to be honest, just because I did a language course, which was heavy on translation. I made and used my own translations, so while I would have read someone else's translation first to kind of help me with some of the meaning and nuance, I can't remember what those editions were, I'm afraid. So, I'm afraid I made my own. But in terms of material to read after, I'd totally recommend reading What Little We Have of Menander, because it makes a really interesting kind of counterpoint as a thing that followed on from Aristophanes as we went from old into new comedy. You've mentioned on a few occasions your love of old steam locomotives and the romance that goes with them. Have you ever had the opportunity to visit any of the preserved railway lines in the UK? Not recently. I think I did a little bit when I was a kid, but the actual bit of trains that really fascinated me when I was a child wasn't actually specifically the old railways themselves. I loved little train model villages where there was proper little train sets all properly set up with a nice landscape and everything. I was fascinated with those when I was a kid. Whenever you could go and visit one of those, and there was a really big one where loads of effort had been put in, and I had my own train set, so I'd always build my own town out of just train sets and blocks as best as I could. But nothing took my breath away more than just a beautiful massive train set. If video games weren't a thing and if I had space, I'd totally be the sort of person who by now would have my own train set. But honestly, if I ever wanted to have my own train set now, I'd probably just get a game that does just that. Because there's actually a VR game that does exactly that. That's just basically for building your own train set in VR. And it's a beautiful use for VR. So, video games kind of scratch that itch for me, I suppose. But it's kind of the same thing that I felt when I was a kid. What positive things could Fallout 76 take from earlier games to make it better, and which would make it worse? Ooh, interesting. So it sounds like the basic core flow of the game is going to be well, actually, it's almost going to be like a survival game, not like Fallout 4 survival, but like a traditional survival game like Subnautica or something, where it's going to be a case of, okay, start off weak, so explore your local area and gather, bring that stuff back. That lets you craft something new that lets you explore into dangerous, further away areas, and so you're just expanding the range at which you are capable of safely roaming. So just a kind of a cycle of gather, collect, craft, build, explore, and just kind of keeping going around that circle. And I'm fine with that because I really enjoyed that in Fallout 4. What I hope they kind of add in is a slightly more chaotic nature to things. So every time you go out, you have a fresh adventure. So I think the slightly more random element of Fallout 3's Wasteland would suit the game very, very well indeed. Because when you go out into the world with some friends, you want to have a fresh adventure that's different. If every time you go to the same location, it's always exactly the same, it'll get boring very quickly, I suspect. Like, I think what's going to make that game live or die is how much, when you go out into the world with friends, do you have really unique, interesting adventures that are going to be different from everyone else's, so you can tell people about it. I think if that actually works nicely, that'd be really, really cool. So we'll wait to see whether they get that right. I think that's the thing that could work out really, really well. In terms of stuff they could take from the older games that would make it worse, it's kind of hard for me to say because there's a lot that can't really come across. Like, in a world where we know there's not going to be human NPCs, and for the most part the quest-giving structure is going to be fairly simple, just like robots giving you the odd quest, it doesn't seem like things like, say, faction systems or huge diverging quest paths are going to be a thing. It's going to be very different. So it's kind of hard to say because there's like lots in the old games that can't really be transplanted into Fallout 76. So once again, I'm going to have to kind of bottle out on this one and just say, until we know more about Fallout 76, I cannot really answer that question. We don't have enough information upon which to build an understanding of what likely will or won't work. Once we know more, however, I'll likely do a follow-up to my, things I want to see in Fallout 4 video about Fallout 76 and talk about, based on the information we have, what should and shouldn't go on to be added. John, in the awesome adventures of Captain Spirit, is it just me who thinks of the picture of Chris and Emily found in the Maze of Doom? The age difference between the two looks more like brother and older sister than mother-son. Do you think this could be going somewhere, especially if time travel is canon in Life is Strange? I didn't personally notice that, to be honest. I think it looked perfectly reasonable that Emily could be Chris's mother. I didn't really think of that, though. Equally, in Life is Strange, photos are very stylized because they're done in a different visual style that's almost like it's made in paint. So I think it's quite hard to tell. So personally, I didn't get that impression, but Life is Strange, never say never. Do you think now you've made Fallout 3 better than you think, you'd be better prepared to make more video essays in future? Yeah, I've already started work on Fallout 4 is better than you think. Which is going to be even more controversial. It's going to be even more controversial. I might hold off releasing that till a bare minimum, like there's been a bit of gameplay of Fallout 76. Because once everyone's played Fallout 76 and the Fallout fandom has collectively lost its mind and declared that Fallout 76 is Satan and Fallout 4 is going to be the last great Fallout game, then everyone will be way more into hearing how Fallout 4 was actually great. Which would be great. Absolutely marvellous. Do you think you know enough now about the process to delegate some of the work to a new employee if you want to get one? No, I think if I'm making that video, I'd need to do the work myself because I know the shots I'd like to include. Like, I very carefully picked the shots I wanted for Fallout 3's Better Than You Think, so I'd need to do that myself. I think me and Claire right now is fine. I don't think we need a third person at the minute. If you could have a choice of power armor suits to have in real life, what type and what colour would you go for? Oof. Can I just opt out of this entire conversation because I'm slightly claustrophobic, so being sealed inside power armor is a bit of a nightmare to me. I'd absolutely hate it. I'd freak the hell out. But in terms of which I think looks the best, I'd say probably the classic T-51B is probably the most recognisable and looks really, really, really damn cool. And if you had to go for one colour, well, probably if you wanted it to look as recognisable as possible, go for the default sort of vaguely greeny colour they seem to come in. But if you just wanted it to look badass, I'd personally go for the hot rod print that you can get in Fallout 4. Because yeah, T-51 with all of the red hot rod colour on it, that's pretty damn cool. Hi John, Claire and Tabby. My question is, what would be the best question to ask you and how would you answer it? The best question to ask me would be, is Tabby a good cat? Because it's one of those rare questions where there is an absolute undeniable single answer. The answer is yes, Tabby is a good cat. John, the Passepartout video has been out for hours and I still can't find a Hope coaster or Eye of the Beholder flag in the MATN store. What gives? You see, this is what the Teesprings shop could be really good for. Like, if I do a video like Passepartout, I could literally have merch available immediately just on the off chance the odd person genuinely wants to buy it. Any good dating games on your horizon, like the tank or career game? Yes, actually a couple. I don't know exactly when, because there's quite a lot of games starting to come out right now, so we're a bit busy to kind of squeeze one in. But there are two I've got my eye on right now, both really, really cool, and one of them would require Claire's help with. Have you ever considered asking the community to send you recordings of themselves saying, a game I've had my eye on for quite some time, so you can play them all at the same time in the background every time you say that? That'd be quite fun. At some point I might arrange that. Any coaster progress? Oh, to be honest, no. To be honest, we've made like no progress on the coaster set because we had to completely abandon the old supply we were considering because it just wasn't the right quality, and we've really struggled to find like a decent one that actually makes a coaster in the style that we want. So that's still some way off, sorry. On the topic of Fallout 3, what kept Little Lamplight safe from the super mutants that were in the vault? There's gore bags in the vault, so the mutants were hunting people. I always assumed the mutants would just go out the front door, however, because the only thing stopping you going out the front door is, like, well, technically the door is actually sealed to stop people just, like, somehow cheating by just spamming radaways to get in. But, like, the door is supposed to be the rads are what are actually keeping you from just going in the front door. So the super mutants can just go in and out the front door. So they've got no reason to actually go out the back. I agree, it strains a little bit that I think there's just a throwaway remark saying, oh, the kids are just really good at maintaining the barricades at the back of the super mutants, can't get over it. I mean, I suppose technically, a good enough position underground where there's only one way through and it's impossible to flank, and super mutants are mostly dumb. There's not a single smart super mutant in Vault 87. I guess it vaguely makes sense, like, had they actually had an intelligent super mutant, he probably could have managed to actually, get over any barricades the kids set up pretty easily. But if it's nothing but dumb super mutants, then I suppose all you need to do is find, like, a steep, rocky cliff, put a barricade on top of that, and then just pretty much wait. At that point, it just becomes a bit of a wall that they can't climb because they're dumb. It's a bit of a stretch, but you know what? It's fine for me. How does YouTube Premium and YouTube Red work in terms of distributing the actual income? As far as I'm aware, YouTube Premium works on the same basis as Red always used to, which is it's by minutes watched. So it does actually definitely unfairly privilege people who put out regular long-form content. So absolutely, it works well for me, but it doesn't work well for people who are, say, animators, who can only rarely put out short stuff, but, a lot of effort went into it, which is the problem with it. It's a little bit unfairly skewed towards some creators over another. John, I just wanted to let you know that if you want to water the plant in Vampire, you'll need pure water from Whitechapel. It's hidden somewhere. So I've heard, but I can't bloody find the stuff, so poor Lisa II might be doomed to die. Hey John, my girlfriend and I are about to go on my first trip to London, and hopefully I'll be listening to the podcast on our bus ride there. Are there any things you'd recommend from this or future trips there besides M&S and Jaffa Cakes? Where do I find that? Oh, you'll find Jaffa Cakes everywhere. Any supermarket like a Tesco or a Sainsbury's, just go to the biscuit aisle. There will be Jaffa Cakes there. That will be absolutely flipping fine. Aside from just like the usual stuff like the British Museum and all the art galleries that are free in London, which is really, really cool indeed, I always recommend the Museum of Surgery, which is a small little museum, but there's lots of really cool stuff in it. I want to see a video where you have a ukulele off with mats. Amazing. I don't even know where the ukulele is. I think I just threw it into a cupboard somewhere after the one-off joke of doing it in the actual VR Desert Bus video. I don't know where it is. It's flipping somewhere. Or can you sing some of The Devil Went Down to Georgia? I'm going to disappoint you now. I've no idea what that song sounds like. Absolutely no clue. So that's going to be a problem, I'm afraid. I'm very sorry. John, have you ever thought about changing your logo font to a vector graphic so it looks a bit smoother, especially on full screen? Yeah, there's a couple of little tiny bits of, like, cleaning up we should do. There's a bunch of, like, legacy assets just floating around on the channel that were just, like, made very quickly by me literally years ago, where Claire could probably do a better job creating nicer versions of them. That's probably a good reminder. I think Claire and I will probably discuss that this next month. John, what time period would you choose to set an HBO Rome-style epic that the show didn't depict? I've always thought early Byzantine era of history, specifically reign of Justinian, wars with the Italian Goths and Sassanids would be great. That would be great, though we could just have a third series of Rome. I feel like Rome was cut short before its time, damn it. Rome was great, just give us more Rome. I'm not sure whether this is a compliment or a criticism, but someone pointing out, yes, in my cooking videos, I do appear to have somewhat hairy arms. Have you ever grown a beard or a goatee? Once in my life, back when I was working somewhere else, I actually took part in the Office Movember, where as part of like just a charity thing, you don't shave for a month in order to grow some form of moustache or beard or something. So I just grew a beard. It was really uncomfortable. It was really uncomfortable and itchy. It looked awful at first. By the end of the month, it looked sort of okay. And then I just kind of shaved it down bit by bit. So I kind of shaved it down into like a Tony Stark style thing. And then finally I shaved a bit too much off and it was uneven. I just had to get rid of the whole lot. And then like for about a week, my mouth felt really lonely because it felt like my mouth had nothing around it and I'd just gotten used to there being like moustache and beard around it. So I generally felt like I can't describe this sensation as anything other than my mouth felt lonely for a while. So, you know, that was a bit sad. Do you have any thoughts on the closure of Pound World and Bargain Buys? None of them specifically. I didn't really shop there for the most part. But yeah, it certainly is a spot on the worrying side that so many big things in Britain right now seem to be shutting down. That's a lot of jobs we've lost recently. Between Thrones of Britannia and Crusader Kings 2, I'm beginning to sense a geographical theme. Can we expect your next Stellaris run to be Space Britain? Actually, Thrones of Britannia and Crusader Kings 2 is kind of an accident. I never intended going into Crusader Kings 2 that it was going to be British themed in particular. The only reason I really went into Britain was, one, I wanted a vassal that was in an interesting position where stuff was going to be happening, and the fact that, you know, one of the start points for Crusader Kings 2 was 1066, I just thought, okay, I don't want a really quiet first episode where nothing happens. If it's just me explaining mechanics and, like, you know, we expand one territory but nothing much happens, like, for people who aren't into the game, it might be boring. So I thought, okay, starting in England in 1066 is perfect, because then I can say, okay, there's this little area and I'm just going to talk about, like, the little things I'm doing as I'm starting to build up from a vassal to a duke. But at the same time, there's a massive war happening over there that only kind of tangentially involves me, but it means stuff is happening. So I just thought it was just a really good way of having a bit more of an exciting opening that I might have otherwise had. So the British thing was not really planned. It was just kind of by accident when I realised that that would be kind of like probably the best place to have the opening from the perspective of new people who are new to the franchise. I'd love to see more Prey Moon Crash. Honestly, I feel like I'm kind of done with it. I might play a tiny bit more of it, but I don't think I'm going to make a video. Not because I don't think it's not good, just because I don't think I can add much more to it than what I've already said. Oblivion would be nice too. Oh, don't ask for too much or anything. Oh no. Just Oblivion, just a game that would take 100 bloody parts. Fine, you'll get your Oblivion or Morrowind or both at some point, not imminently. I really appreciate the effort that you put into your video titles. Yay, somebody does! When you tend to come up with them, generally when I set them uploading, I can sometimes spend bloody ages coming up with the right title pun for a video. It takes me a long time. How many goals will Harry Kane score to bring the World Cup home to England? I'm going to be honest, there are problems with your question. There are certain parts of it that don't quite make sense. I'm going to say 2. Harry Kane, and this is my prediction right now. Harry Kane during this World Cup is going to score 2 goals. I know he's scored more than that already, don't worry, I'm just messing with you. I've no clue. I'm going to say he's going to score 8 total. 8. That's my actual prediction. Hi, John and Claire. John, has there ever been a time when Claire has laughed, yelled, or screamed so loudly during editing a video, you've gone in to see if she's alright? This happens all the time. Because Claire's, like, typically she's editing just, like, one room over from me. Like, all the time, I hear just, like, hysterical laughter, and I go and check what she's just laughing at. Not only because I want to know what it is, but also because it's useful for me to know, like, what gets the really strong reactions. Like, there was one bit of Crusader Kings 2, I thought it was somewhat funny, but not that funny, but Claire thought it was hysterical. So it's just moments like that that could work very nicely because it just gives me a bit of feedback. So it's not just my view on things. I get Claire's take as well. But this happens all the time. And editing Claire, same question reversed. Have you ever heard me kind of give a reaction that's been so extreme you've heard it and been curious?
Oh, I absolutely can hear him all the time when he's recording. If I'm not wearing my headphones that I use for editing, I can basically hear him pretty much as if I were in the same room, unless he's like whispering or something. Just because if you're recording videos for YouTube or whatever, you tend to need to project and speak a lot louder than you normally would. And that means if I'm getting up to get a glass of water or whatever, I'm able to get pretty much everything that he's saying, and then he comes out and I'm like, ooh, what did you mean when you said such and such in the Crusader Kings video? What's coming up? And I get a little snippet of what to expect when I do the editing.
And there's an adorable game called Cat Quest on Steam. Is this on either of the lists? I don't think it is. And hasn't that just had a sequel announced? I don't know anything about it. I'll need to give it to Luxie. Regarding last month, I asked what your top 5 games by playtime were, and now you've gone to provide instructions on how to actually get that. Bear in mind, this is not really accurate because many of these games I have a lot more hours on console before I had a decent PC, so this is not necessarily accurate, but on my Steam at least, my top played game is Fallout 4 with 450 hours on record, Stellaris in at number 2 with 241 hours, Skyrim at 194, Fallout New Vegas in at number 4 with 146, Rome Total War at 5 with 137, Medieval 2 only just behind at 128, and then, actually not too surprisingly to me at least, is Hitman at 108 hours. I got 108 hours of entertainment out of the first series of Hitman. What a brilliant game that was. Well deserving of those 108 hours. I'm currently job hunting. Got any interview tips? Ooh, as someone who's both, interviews a lot and been an interviewer for other people, I'd say your level of enthusiasm is something that people possibly underestimate. Like, lots of jobs, there can be loads of people who, could do the job, but someone who's clearly very, perky and enthusiastic and seems genuinely interested in the job, I think has a head and shoulders advantage. Because lots of people, you think, okay, these people all technically on paper might be alright, how am I going to actually separate them out? And I think a good way of doing it is the people who seem genuinely excited for the job. So if you can seem genuinely enthusiastic and a bit, bit out there and perky and bubbly and enthusiastic about the whole thing, I think that can help you huge amounts. Double cursing you for being one of the reasons on how I got my girlfriend. Love you really, John. I don't feel like you should double curse me for that. I think I deserve, a box of chocolates or something, actually. How does that make you feel in regards to the community at large? I love that sort of thing. I love that sort of thing, when I hear, people who've actually, stirred up real life friendships and they've actually met in person, but the way they met was because through the Discord or chatting in the live stream chat or the subreddit or something like that. It's really cool. It's really cool if people actually form real friendships off this community. It's very humbling, but it's really damn cool. Hope you guys are well and Tabby's not letting all this artistic attention go to her head. That's probably why she's being such a brat at the minute about the new the meal schedule. She kind of thinks suddenly she's a bit of a celebrity and a diva on account of all the art that's being done of her. I've just finished catching up with the XCOM live stream. How much would your playstyle have differed if you hadn't been running this as a live stream? Would you have been less impetuous, and were some of the more risky choices taken to keep a stream more interesting? It's certainly true that when you're doing live stuff, I try and keep the pace up a bit, so I might have, more carefully gone away, had a think, moved forward really slowly, and just, moved forward, a couple of spaces at a time, and just basically done Overwatch leapfrogging constantly, but that's a bit boring to watch, so I played a little bit more, aggressively than I might have done normally. Because as I understand it, people who actually play Impossible Mode on XCOM, the way to do it is basically to play what strikes me as quite a boring style, where you need to basically have your entire team lined up in a great big Overwatch trap, send one person forward, and then pull them straight back to lead aliens straight into a big Overwatch trap, which strikes me as a bit uninteresting, and I didn't really know that going in. I'd only heard that later. So, yeah, I kind of played a little bit aggressively to keep it a bit more fun and interesting, because I didn't really, I didn't mind if I died, because I was going to die sooner or later. But there were some great moments in that stream. That was a really fun stream. I think that was one of the best we've done. My friend is doing a Classics A-level. Any advice for that mad bastard? I'm afraid I can't really so much because I don't really know exactly what that is. I mean, is there actually a specific Classics A-level now? It used to be just Latin as a language with an element of some culture, Greek as a language, and then there was what was it called? Classical Civilization? As that was the one with no language that was just about ancient history, effectively. So it kind of depends which one, to be honest. I mean, I guess, if it is a language one, I'm going to assume it's a language one. If it's a language one, for Latin especially, the key is to just make sure you fully understand, the rules and building blocks of how the language fits together, because Latin is incredibly regular. So once you understand how the building blocks work, it's so much easier to actually be good at Latin, because then all you need to do really is memorize the vocabulary, and you can pretty much translate anything that's going to be put in front of you. So I'll say that, but I'd need a bit more detail to actually give like a more thorough response. And with your interest in history and your love of Total War, have you ever considered making Time Commander style videos explaining famous historical battles? I have considered it, but honestly, a lot of people have already done that sort of thing, so it's something that, like, you know, has been well done by people who have already done a very good job at it. So I think it's okay. I don't really kind of want to chase something that's already been done. Now, that's technically the end of the list, but I saw a couple of emails actually coming in, so I'm just going to quickly check my emails now, just to actually get the last-minute questions coming. Oh, no, I've already seen these. These are marvellous. I've actually got the emails right here. Are there any more that's coming in? No! Actually, that was the last one. I think, like, Patreon, like, dynamically updates its page, because some of those were not actually here when I started recording. Right! So that's the end in that case. That is the end of the Patroncast. Thank you all so very, very much for listening. I'm really warm, and the push-ups that you made me do in the middle did not help that. I'm going to go get myself a fresh glass of really cold water right now and just chill out for a bit. It's so hot in here. The doors are all closed, the windows are closed, the computer's on. Really hot. Oh, I'm going to go, like, sit in the freezer for a bit, see if I can just fit myself in the fridge. That'd be great. I will see you all next month, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very, very much for being here. Thank you very, very much for being patrons in general, because, yes, it keeps this whole business going, especially in a world where YouTube just keeps changing everything. I don't know right now what Premium's going to do. It might make things better. It being YouTube, it might make things flipping worse. We just don't know. YouTube just changed everything. Like we just heard this morning. This morning, YouTube just vaguely announced in, like, you know, a tweet, oh yeah, by the way, like, in some cases, we're just turning off your custom thumbnails to put in automatically generated ones just to see what it does. So don't do that. Stop that, you stupid bastards, YouTube. YouTube are a menace. Right. Thank you all so very, very much. It is much appreciated. You guys are great. You guys keep this channel going. Hopefully, I will see you next week. But in the meantime, I've been John. This has been Many a True Nerd, and this has been the June sort of 2018 Patroncast. Thank you very much, and goodbye.